Amidst a radioactive environment, in the eternal dark of the underground, at unattainable altitudes, Kazakhstan's vast lands attract researchers and explorers from all over the world, and our filming crew are no exception.
Дорогие друзья, здравствуйте!
Hello to everybody. Karaganda region invites its guests to plunge into the atmosphere of the Bronze Age. Sounds like a phrase from a tourist leaflet with only one small addition. Don't miss the visit to the pyramid. Strange, but as a matter of fact, we do have such a structure in our country, and archaeologists are examining it as we speak. Let's see whether it is similar to the legendary Egyptian pharaoh tombs. Coming up in the next 15 minutes. Open a textbook on Kazakhstan's history or go online to learn that the Bronze Age in Karaganda region has been studied for quite some time. R.K. Margulan is one of the key subject matter experts, and his legendary books are a must on the desks of the scientists working on this topic today. Margulan proved that this region can be called a Klondike of sites and artifacts dating back to this era. We are yet to learn whether it holds some gold. First of all, we need to get to the place. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We'll drive to make it a little easier. Who is this courageous man that challenged the nature and the road? His name is Venay Bin, and he's from Beijing. Let's find out how he found himself close to Jarkent and how many miles he covered to arrive at the place. I flew from Beijing to Urumqi. From there for 8 days I have been riding my bike. Based on rough calculations, during this time Van had already covered about 700 kilometers, but it appeared nothing compared to what he told us about the final goal of his journey. First I want to stop by Almaty. After that, I will travel to Astana, from there to Moscow and St. Petersburg. After Russia, I want to visit Finland, with Spain as the final point of my trip. In Spain, our cyclist intends to visit Barcelona, and not for the sake of soccer, sightseeing in Catalonia or going to Picasso Museum. Wen is an interior designer, and his long-cherished dream is to see the masterpieces of Antoni Gaudi. I want to see the buildings designed by Gaudi. He was a famous architect, and a lot of houses in Barcelona were created thanks to his talent. This is my dream. To pull this odyssey off, Wen had saved 100,000 yuans, freed up the next half a year in his schedule, packed up the most necessary items and left his home on this fascinating journey. A lot of stuff to bring, and what a romantic-minded guy.
It's my
This is my second trip. Last time I rode my bike through India, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam and most of my home country.
You are strong and brave man. Good luck.
Van promised to visit the excavation site of the pyramid on his way. Hope he makes it there before the end of the excavation. Saying goodbye, Tsai Tian, my little friend of this big bicycle race. To see the first artifacts from the pyramid, we had to stop by Karaganda. They are stored at the local Bukatov University. Last year, during the excavation of this mausoleum, we found several ceramic vessels. Here you can see all 6 of them. Frankly speaking, they are not from the actual mausoleum, not from the pyramid. Unfortunately, it was completely pillaged. They didn't leave anything in the main burial chamber. The vessels, rescued by archaeologists, appeared quite eloquent. Rubbing on their side and cleaning off this centuries-old dust did not call out a djinn, but allowed to identify them as belonging to the multiple relief bent-ware culture. Is Bronze era characterized by similar symbols, same pottery, decorative patterns and materials?
и ее ранний период.
In our territory, both during the early and the later Bronze Age, we see the same culture. Previously it was called the Andronian community, and before that, Bergazi-Dandibai culture. No other cultures mixed with it.
То есть никакие другие культуры сюда не примешивались. Здесь, что мы сейчас...
This culture covered the whole territory of the present-day Kazakhstan except for western regions. We have been finding similar monuments in the south and in the east of Kazakhstan, in the north and in the center. Moreover, it extended over to Altai. Similar ceramics are found there too. This one is handmade without the use of a potter's wheel. The Central Asian ceramics, on the contrary, were made using the wheel.
И все равно до сих пор для меня остается загадкой.
Still, the riddle which is burning my mind is whether there could be a link between the Karaganda pyramid and its Egyptian colleagues. Could it be that there was some channel along which the architectural ideas and projects traveled space and time? Let's see what we can find out. Karaganda archaeologists have investigated hundreds of Bronze Age sites. It seemed there was nothing that could surprise them, but then they came across this barrow. There are a lot of such mausoleums. It was believed that practically all of them underwent examination. Bergazi, Bugul Mausoleum, Sangru Abai Darasi, and this one is the fifth one. It was an earthen hill about 25 by 30 meters, which is a rather large diameter, more than 1.5, almost 2 meters high. From afar, it looked very similar to the early Iron Age barrows. This pyramidal structure has been standing here for more than 3,000 years, accompanied by dozens of burials. They are smaller than the central barrow and most likely belong to people of lower rank. There are also burials of younger age. Igor Alexeyevich, this is a barrow, isn't it? Yes, it is a barrow, but of the early Iron Age, the so-called Scythian Saka era. How do you distinguish them?
Что курганы раннего железного века, они нередко соседствуют.
The thing is that the early Iron Age barrows quite often adjoin to the Bronze era structures. The burial grounds often include different periods, that is the Bronze, the early Iron and Middle Ages. It means that certain sacral places were often used not by several generations, but in the course of several eras.
Отличие, в общем-то, эпохи бронзы от раннего.
The key difference between the Bronze and early Iron Age barrows is that the latter are more monumental, so to say. As a rule, they would be built using stones. In other words, they would collect a pile of stones and place it over the burial chamber. Quite often, they would encircle the mount with a ring fence of some kind. The archaeologists left this barrow of the early Iron Age for dessert. At present, they are focusing on the examination of the main site. The greatness and the monumentalism of this burial was devoted to only one person. The archaeologists already found his remains. He was a man and even examined his skull. Who was it? It must have been some kind of a czar or a tribal chief. No attributes of his authority or social status were found, as by the time of the mission, the burial had already been plundered. It is possible that both contemporaries and subsequent cultures could pillage the site, for example, the same Scythian Saka people. Cultures were replacing each other, the values were changing also. New ones would be coming into the scene while the old ones would vanish. In case of a nomadic culture, it could also move from one place to another. New tribes or people could come to live in this place without any information of previous traditions or shrines. The time did not spare the burial and naturally changed its appearance. For example, initially, these plates were standing vertically along the perimeter. In addition to their aesthetic role, perhaps they served as the foundation for the whole design, not letting the stones and soil crawl away in different directions. As to the pyramid's shape, the scientists have different opinions. Some of them believe in convergence. Here we have several concentric squares inside one another. The same design was used for more ordinary burials as well. They could have fewer plate fences, 2 or 3. The chamber is usually in the center, surrounded by 2 or 3 rings of fencing. This design is shared by all similar structures. Their dwellings also had the same rectangular shape and were built of stone. The mausoleums served as dwellings for the dead and had a square shape. Other scientists speak of quite explainable cultural loan. It is possible that in the ancient time there was some kind of trans-Asiatic corridor, along which things, ideas and technologies, as well as migrations, would flow back and forth. In total, the scientists have examined 13 barrows on the territory of this necropolis, including the central one. The majority of them didn't bring any extraordinary finds. At this site, they found 3 vessels standing on top of each other and a sheep bone crowning the structure. The animal was sacrificed. One of the vessels that we found is very interesting. We found enough elements to restore it, reconstruct and put it back together almost completely. It has a quadrangular mouth. I think this is the first such find in the area. Such vessels are sometimes found in western and southern Siberia. They found a couple of them there. Altogether, about 10 such vessels are known to science at the moment. The shape is unusual. Most likely these were some kind of ritual vessels going back to earlier times. Their square bottom allows to characterize them as belonging to the Andronian society. We also found a knife of the so-called Kemerovo style. It is leaf-shaped and has a counter-force edge. In general, such knives belong to a later period and are quite widespread, as well as have their own internal typology and chronology. It's like an ordinary day-to-day working knife, just like this one. It had a bone or a wooden handle. Wooden most likely, as it didn't survive the time. In soil, bones stay intact much longer than wood. We also found a socketed bronze arrowhead, which is also characteristic of this period. Two-sided and not very big. It means that bows at that time became smaller, not the big ones that one charges from ear, but smaller ones that were charged from the chest. Such bows and arrowheads were used by mounted riders, that is, horse soldiers or cavaliers. So we can allege that in this area at that time horses were widely used for various purposes. Neat and precise bricklaying, a stone to a stone, with a total of 500 tons of construction materials used to build the barrow. By the way, very soon the site will undergo restoration. The works will allow to bring the height of the burial up to 3 meters and mark a new tourist attraction, Karajan Tas, on the map of Kazakhstan. Should you be going on a travel around Karaganda region, stop by and you will for sure enjoy the view.
Наша цель – это доисследовать, конечно, центральный мавзолей.
Our main goal is to finish the examination of the central mausoleum, of course, as well as to investigate some of the ordinary structures within the site. Whereas central structures usually provide a lot of information about their designs and construction methods, they are the monumental architectural objects of antiquity. Ordinary burials tell us more about certain types of weapons, ceramics and working tools, and thus are more valuable as to characterizing a given culture. Time will pass, the archaeologists will finish their study of the netherworld and will start looking for information about the life of humans in the area. It is clear that somewhere near here there was an ancient city inhabited by numerous people. It was probably a prospering settlement, since its residents could afford themselves to build such a magnificent mausoleum for their leader, which we can admire thousands of years later.